Hello and welcome to Basiltov, the courage and creativity of ADHD. I'm Jen.
I'm Ellen.
And I'm Annette.
And we're here after taking a very lengthy summer break for many reasons. And we're back to tell you what the hell we've been up to, why the hell we took a break in the first place, and why we're so bad at communicating it. Yeah, hey, how about that? So cheers to lack of dopamine, short attention spans, and ADHD. Let's see, where should we begin? We've all kind of had some fun things happen to us over the summer. And once they started piling up with all three of us, we just kind of made a unanimous decision that summer break was going to suck this year. There would be no fun romps on the beach for any of us, and that we were just going to claw our way through it the old-fashioned way with our teeth gritted and our buttholes puckered. So
accurate.
Yeah. And every time something would go wrong, we'd just kind of bend over and scream, "Thank you, universe. May I have another?" And and then it happened, unfortunately.
Should have relaxed that butthole, make it easier.
It would have been, hindsight is 2020 on that one.
Yeah.
Hindsight. Oh my God.
Hey-o.
Oh, so
we're back, baby.
We're back. And where did we go? Well, who wants to go first on this one?
Oh man, you guys. I feel like I had it easy compared to you this summer.
So why don't we go easy to hard?
Okay, yeah, we'll do that so that nobody's
gently.
Well,
ease everyone into this with just the tip. Go ahead, Ellen.
Yes. I mean, I guess the worst thing that happened to me was I lost my job at the bakery. That was unfortunate. It was just they had to lay off some staff because of budgeting concerns. So that happened. But other than that, nothing really changed too much in my life, I would say.
What about the poop water basement, though?
Oh, God, yes. My basement did flood with poop water for the second time. That was unfortunate.
Yeah,
I finally got that fixed. Yep. Oh, God, cleaning that up is never fun. But got that taken care of, and had some great times with my kids this summer. I took them to Portland, and so that was fun. But it's really good to be back with you guys, though.
Oh, I know. I missed you guys so much over our break. It's amazing to be back.
Did the kids get to meet your boyfriend?
Yeah, they did. They'd actually met him another time when he visited me, but we got to hang out with my boyfriend and his daughter, who's just a year older than my daughter, and so it was great for the kids to hang out, and we had a little slumber party, and so much fun.
Oh, that sounds like fun.
Yeah.
Yay.
Yay.
Okay, so I don't know which one of you has it worse right now.
I know. Should we flip a coin?
No, I would say it's Jen. I think Jen definitely has the upper hand on that one. So
not by a whole lot. I mean, yours is still pretty.
Just different. We're all in different places in life.
Yeah,
so Nettie, what's been going on with you?
So before we even took a summer break, I had part of my hellish summer had already been put into place. At the end of June, my father was arrested by the FBI for distribution and possession of child pornography, and which I know he didn't do. And people will say, "Oh, but you never know. People do things." No. If you know my father, he definitely did not do this. Now, the background on that is that my father is a software developer, and he worked on government systems, and he worked for a company, and he just recently retired. He was forced into retirement, and then as soon as he was retired, boom, this happened. So basically we didn't know any of the details. We didn't know, if he was going to come home and apparently because of the nature of the crime, they refused him bail. So my mom is all alone in her house
Oh,
and
your poor mom. And
yeah,
your poor dad.
well, yeah, my dad is adjusting. He still has hard times, but I had to drop everything, find a lawyer, and you know, I'm still having to deal with a lot of things for my family and keeping everybody up to date and what's going on. But right now his trial is set for November 5th, but the lawyer said that that's not a good day for him, so that will be pushed off a little bit more. So during that time, whenever the trial ends up being, I will be going back to the States. But, I'm kind of hoping that they find something in discovery that, just gets the case dismissed, is what I hope for, because, my dad is like the least creepy guy in the entire world. And you two have known him forever.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Yeah.
So they're still doing discovery?
Well, the prosecutor turned over discovery. Now the lawyer and my dad are going through the discovery and, taking a look at it and processing it. But what my dad had thought it was he was doing some research using peer-to-peer networks. And he thinks he might have gotten hacked, but then what he thought he might find, he didn't see in the first set of discoveries. So he was really disheartened, and he was, he basically told my mom, because I don't know if anybody knows about the laws on child pornography, but to even have it in your possession is a crime in and of itself. So whether or not somebody hacked your computer or not, the fact that it was on your computer, you're already guilty of possession. So we don't know how to fight that particular charge, but the other one, distribution, if we can show that he was hacked and that's how the distribution was happening, then maybe they'll throw out the possession charge as well. But we have to figure out how to do that. So, we have to hire an expert witness, and we have to finish going through all the details. And my dad can't say anything to us because every phone call he makes, every person he talks to, except his lawyer, when his lawyer physically goes to the jail, it's all being recorded and it's all being listened to by the prosecutor. So you can't say anything. So you can't tell your family what's going on. You can't, all you can do is talk about your feelings or talk about other things. You can't get help. And then the other thing that had happened was that my dad has diabetes and he has heart disease, and his health is not good. Well, they took his medications with him when they arrested him, but once he ran out, they didn't reorder it. So my dad was not getting his blood thinners, and that set off his atrial fibrillation. So he was just exhausted halfway through the day. And then they're feeding him like carb heavy foods, because everybody thinks that people in jail eat really well. No, people in prison eat well. The federal prisons, they feed their prisoners much better. This is a county jail that my dad is in. He's in a federal, like he was arrested for a federal crime and he's being held under federal statute, but he's being held in a county jail. And so the food is crap. My dad's diabetic. Then they weren't giving him his insulin properly. They didn't refill his medicine. So I went ahead and made a big stink. And I called
you should have.
I called the governor. I called the representative for their area. I said, this is happening in York jails. I called the jail and launched a complaint. I had other people call the jail and launch a complaint. I had other people call the governor. And actually, my ex-husband used his, he's in the Air Force and he's an officer in the Air Force. And he contacted the governor using his own letterhead and
Nice.
basically said, you need to look
Very nice
into
of
this
him.
and you need, and you need to look into this and you need to see, what's going on here. So the representative for their area ended up making a well call. So went, and had his staff go to the jail and look into it, found that he wasn't being treated properly with his medications. Finally, the jail asked for a list of his medications and his doctors. So now they're giving him his insulin on time, and now they're giving him his medication on time, but they didn't. So,
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really dangerous.
happened. Yeah. My
Mhm.
mom was like crying and talking to me and basically like, they're trying to kill him. They're trying to kill your dad. And I was like,
Oh.
yeah, kind of they are. I mean, the way that they're treating him, I can't imagine anything else.
And I bet that's not the first time that's happened there. I bet that happens to a lot
No,
of people.
a lot of people go into jail and they don't come out. And
Yeah.
I don't think enough people are talking about this.
Mm-hmm.
But I have a friend of mine in California, and her brother was arrested for a bar fight and then ended up dying in a Redding, California jail days later.
This is
I think I know who you're talking
unfortunately
about.
a story that is
maybe
Yeah,
not.
you probably
way.
do. No, you probably do.
Yeah.
Daniel's wife.
Oh.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh
Yeah.
no.
So,
yeah, this is unfortunately a story that is way more common than anybody wants to think it is. And there are different minority communities out there in the BIPOC community, especially Black people, who have been trying to ring this bell about, prison issues and jail issues and, issues within the criminal justice system. And, there are some of us who do read it and we know it. We've known it for a while, but a lot of, sadly, mostly white families do not understand the burdens that are placed on the families of people who are in jail or prison, and they don't understand how their family members will be treated. So it comes as quite a shock. And, they've been hearing for years, like little whispers of like, oh, the prison system is unfair, unjust, inequitable. And, for people who, let's face it, are on the top of society, they don't have to check into those things. They don't have to worry their heads about it. But this is something that everybody should really, think about, because it could be your family member if somebody just makes one terrible mistake, or if they even have somebody else frame them for for something that was terrible.
But here's the thing, okay? So my parents are not poor, okay? They're not rich, but they're not poor, okay? They're comfortably middle class is what I would say. They're middle class or upper middle class, okay? Did you know you have to pay to talk to somebody in the prison?
Mm-hmm. I did know that because
it's not even it's not even
I job shadowed in prisons, or not in a prison, but in the county jail, and I worked in military law enforcement.
Did you know you have to buy your own pillow and buy your own blanket and buy, like, they don't provide that for you. You freeze your ass off until somebody.
That's in that state, by the way. In Oregon, they do provide those things.
Oh, well, that's nice of Oregon. Yeah. So, but you're not guaranteed that. So know your rights when,
this is Mississippi, right?
Yeah. But even if you don't think that you'll ever be arrested, look up what the prisoner's rights are, just in case you do get arrested, because we had to set up a fund for Dad to be able to buy basic things. And every time he calls, like, we have to pay, and it's not collect. And they take, like, every time you charge, like, you put $100 onto a calling card, they take a $8 fee just for fuck all, and then
convenience fee.
Yeah, and then it's charged by minute, and it's so expensive. So people who come from poor families, you can't afford that. My mom is paying like $100, $150, like every two weeks or every week maybe, to be able
Ooh.
to have the privilege of talking to her husband every day.
Wow.
Right. And imagine, families who are strapped for cash, who, are collecting change out of their drawers to get gas for the week. Like, families like that are going to be at a severe disadvantage if a member of their family ends up in the jail system or the prison system.
Well, they get
And
forgotten. Those men get forgotten. They get thrown into jail, and then their family can't do anything about it, and they get forgotten.
Wow.
Yeah. Especially if they don't have pearly white skin.
Yeah, like my dad was literally told by a lot of the guys, like, don't be surprised if your wife stops calling.
Wow.
Ooh.
Like, don't be surprised if, that starts to go, or she has a wandering eye or things like that. And my dad, it really hit him and kind of sunk in, and like, he was having some depression. My mom's like, dude, I'm not going to do that to you. Like, my mom's not that kind of person. My dad's not that kind of person. And so like, this whole experience has been so eye-opening until I got a massive eye infection this summer.
Oh.
Yeah. And then your eye was closed again.
Yes.
That's why for anybody watching this, I'm not wearing any makeup today because I can't put any eye makeup on yet. I had a sinus infection. The bacteria just wandered aimlessly from my nose in, my sinuses into my eye. And
how nice.
Yeah. But,
lovely of it.
And kids have been sick, and my
because you guys got
English
COVID
teacher
too, didn't you? Over the summer. Boom! There's another one.
But it hasn't all been a shit storm. I mean, it's been a pretty bad shit storm, but I, at least this whole experience, it kind of like woke me up to like the fact that I haven't been dealing with my stress properly, and my health hasn't been so good, and I'm exhausted, and so I'm putting in some guardrails in my life, and I'm making some moves that I didn't think I could. I haven't had any alcohol for almost a month now. And yeah, so and it's not that I'm saying, well, I'm never gonna drink any alcohol again, but I have realized that I don't need it. And my mental health is so much better without it. And I'm able to feel things and deal with the feelings that I have in a much healthier way than I could when I was just trying to drink away even feeling anything. So, but
that's great.
it really, I needed this like shock. So it's like, kind of the good thing that came out of my dad being arrested was that, I was shocked into such a state of stress that, I really realized that how I was coping was not that, it wasn't going to hold back the dam. And so
that's why I love the word crisis, because it means to sift. And so it's like anytime you go through a crisis in your life, it just sifts everything. Only the important stuff remains once you've been shaken up. Yeah.
True.
It's good in a way. It hurts.
Yeah, it hurts, but it is good for us. It's like cleansing, I guess, gets the bullshit out of our lives.
Yeah, and I've just been running to the mountains.
I know. I'm so glad you've been hiking.
I'm jealous. I need to do that myself.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm like, see ya. It's been good therapy for me. But last week I went with my husband, and I love my husband, but my husband not in the best shape.
Oh
so,
no.
What would have been a 4-hour hike, and I probably would have finished it in about 4 hours or a little under, because that, I'm usually a little faster than average on my little hiking application thing. But what was supposed to be a 4-hour hike ended up being a 7-hour hike.
Oh.
And I basically, at the end of the day, told my husband, I'm just not listening to your opinions anymore. because I said let's leave by 5. At 5 o'clock, he was still sleeping. So I wake him up. I'm like, yo, 5 o'clock. And he's like, I'm going to take a shower. So he takes a shower. We get in the car. I'm a little just like, ugh, okay. But I got my coffee and I got a pumpkin spice latte. Fuck you all
Yes.
haters. And
I've had
I'm
one
like,
too
it's
lately.
okay. Yeah, it's okay. I'm going to the mountains. I'm going to be happy because that's my place. So I put in the GPS, and my husband looks at it. He goes, "That's wrong." And I'm like, "No, it's not." And he's like, "Yeah, it is. When I checked yesterday, it was only 2 hours to get to the mountain." I go, "Babe, did you check all the way to the trail parking lot?" And he said,
Oops.
"No." And I was like, maybe that's why I wanted to leave at 5.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, "Oh, I understand." It's like, okay. So we get there. There's like almost no parking. I magically found a parking space. It was great. And so I was like, and then we start hiking. My husband has to take a lot of breaks, that's fine. I figured that, you know,
Mm-hmm.
he drank half of my water and all of his water. So it's
Oh,
lucky that I
no.
brought my my aquifer into my backpack. But
Yeah.
but we get back down, and I always get a badge because I'm doing these 100 famous mountains of Japan challenge. So I have 100
Ooh.
mountains that I have to climb, and I get a badge for each one. And I have this like curtain that I with all of the mountains names and elevations, and I pin my badge onto this
Nice.
curtain
Yes.
every time. Well, by the time we finished, it was like 5 o'clock, and the shop was closed, so I couldn't find my badge.
Oh
No.
no.
And
Oh,
then
no. You're kidding me. Oh,
No.
I'd be so pissed.
Oh yeah.
I found it on the internet. So
Okay,
but
good. So you're gonna get your badge.
yeah, I got it. I
Yes.
got it.
Okay.
Thank you,
Good.
Phew.
Amazon. Thank you.
Okay, I'll relax
Corporate
now.
Thank you, corporate overlords. But like so then we get into the car, and I put in going home, and all of the highways have like major traffic jams. And so
Oh, no.
the highway and just taking the back roads was about the same time. And I'm like, maybe we should just take the back roads because then we could save on the freeway, because in Japan you have to pay tolls to use the freeway. And so it would save like $30 or something if
Oh,
we
wow.
just took the back roads. And he goes, no, don't believe it. The highway is always faster. And I was like, okay. So we get on the highway, hit the traffic. It's 2.5 hour traffic jam for like 14 kilometers. So for 14
Oh,
kilometers, which is like 7 miles, something like that, it took 2.5
yeah.
hours.
Wow.
So
Whoa.
what it said would be a 3 hour and 58 minute trip ended up being a 5.5 hour trip home. So
Oh, my
back roads would have
God.
been faster. And so at that point, I just kind of said, yeah, no, I'm not
Mm.
listening to
Yeah.
you anymore.
Yep. You learned. Mhm.
Oh man.
But other than that, I
Sometimes
mean,
you just kind of have to listen to somebody who's driven there before and maybe knows things.
yeah,
Mhm.
and so this week, because there's 2 mountains that are both the 100 famous mountains that are right next to each other. And if it was just me, I would have hiked both of them in one day. And, it would have been good. But I knew my husband couldn't do 2. Like that
Yeah.
was never in the cards. And so this week I told my husband, I was like, I really love you, but on Sunday, I'm going to go climb this other mountain, and I'm going to go by myself.
Yeah. I'm sure he
Oh.
understood.
He's like, that's okay, I'm
Yeah.
still sore. I'm like,
Yeah, it sounds like you're more into hiking than he is anyway, but that was really sweet of you to take him with you.
yeah,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
he wants to take videos and make YouTube videos. So I don't know.
Oh.
But he told me, he goes, take the GoPro.
Mhm.
So now I'm going to be just the goat going up the mountain with a GoPro, I guess.
Nice.
But
Yep.
I mean, Feel free if anybody's into hiking and you want to see what hikes are like in Japan, you can follow me on Instagram, Nediyama, or on TikTok. So
Yeah.
Yay.
yeah.
Hiking
Awesome
is
pictures
good.
too.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And
Very
sometimes
pretty.
I torture my children with it too.
Excellent.
Yes. Okay, Jen, tell us the shitstorm of your summer.
Oh, okay. Summer shitstorm. We're doing this. But first I do want to validate something Annette said earlier about her parents. They are some of the sweetest people on the face of the earth. And
Mhm.
I'm one of those people that, when I was growing up, some of my friends' dads were really super creepy with me, and never, ever was Annette's dad super creepy with me. Not even once. He's just not the kind of, when she says he's not this kind of person, and if you know him, you would know that. I know what she means by that. It's hard to explain, but he's extremely honorable to a fault. And I just wanted to put that out there so that she wasn't the only one saying it. Because
Thank you.
when you're welcome. It's when you get into a situation like this, you kind of feel sometimes like you're the only one who's, saying all this stuff, and how would anybody else believe you, because they have no basis to believe you. And,
Yeah. And it's
there's
such a
absolutely,
loaded charge. It's such a
it is,
loaded
it's
charge.
Mhm.
loaded,
People
and
hear that, they hear that word, they hear
yeah,
child pornography, and they just already form an opinion.
Mhm.
yes,
And I
yeah,
did too. I'm
there's,
guilty
there's a lot of
until now.
bias when it comes to it. And, the most natural reaction is to be like, well, what if it is a real thing? And oh my God. And it puts the doubt in you. But, this is just not the kind of person that it's all wrong here. There's nothing,
Mhm.
there's not a single piece of this that really fits too well. And I think that's the most frustrating part of it. And the kind, the thing that we were all kind of agonizing about separately, and mostly Annette, because this is her family. But we've known him for a long time too. And so we were all just kind of like, wow.
Mhm.
And it felt like everybody was sent for a loop for a second there, for sure. But as far as my own hellish shitstorm of summer, well, let's see. It all started back in 1965. No, that's what it feels like by now. Is it started
Mhm.
decades before I was born or something? But this year I turned 41 this last spring, and they were like, "Oh, you haven't had a mammogram yet, so you get to go in for a mammogram, and later on we're going to schedule you for a colonoscopy, and look at all this fun you're going to have." And I was just like, "Great." Stupid. That's kind of what you feel like when you go in for your first one. And, so I went in, and to be honest with you, I have heard so many horror stories about mammograms and squeezing your boobs and how horribly painful it is. Guys, it is really not that bad. I have very large and very dense breast tissue, and even at maximum pressure, it's not that bad. It really is not.
I
It's
agree.
just,
Yeah.
yeah,
It was tolerable.
the machine, it digs into your sides. And Ellen did her first one this year too. And so we were kind of commiserating a little bit. You gotta, you gotta spend this time in your day and whatever. And I felt like it hurt my ribs more than my actual boobs. So I was actually a little annoyed when I left. Why did everybody try to scare me like this? What is this? I had nothing to be afraid of. I went in for this thing, absolutely nothing to be scared of here. So, just like they told me, they gave me a call back and said, "Hey, we need you to come in for a second one, because whenever you have your very first mammogram, you usually get called in for a second one." And that's because they have no pictures of your breast tissue from before. So they can't compare any of the things that they see in there to something from last time. So they want to take two instead of just one, unless you have breasts that are
Bullshit.
not dense. Yeah, unless your breasts are not dense and they just look like the classic, perfect, beautiful breast tissue that medical doctors like to see. And most people, have varying cellular architecture, so you might get a call back. So I wasn't actually like upset about this at all. I was like, whatever, I'm just going to go in. They're going to squeeze my boobs again. No big deal. Well, unfortunately, that's not how it went. So they went in and said, hey, we really do not like the look of this spot here. And when they turned the screen around, I could see pretty immediately what they were talking about. There was a very large spot on mammography, and I saw immediately what they were, like even to my untrained eye, I was like, wow, okay. So they were like, okay, so we need you to come back for an ultrasound. Okay, cool. So I scheduled it for I want to say 4 days after that or something. A couple days later, my grandmother died. And I was like,
that's right.
Yeah. And she was 99 years old. So much like Bob Barker, she didn't go over 100. And she, we kind of had to deal with that as a family. And then I went back for my ultrasound and they said, okay, so this doesn't look as bad as it looks on mammogram, but it still looks pretty darn bad. And it's making us very nervous. And we want to take a biopsy of this. And I was like, oh, this is real. This is getting real now. Okay. So I scheduled a core needle biopsy, which if you guys don't know what that is, it's a 14 gauge needle, which is similar to the needle where you'd go into a piercing shop and maybe, get a belly button piercing. And they shove that into your breast tissue and they have something that goes inside of it that basically takes little noodles of skin or of tissue out of the middle of your boob, wherever it is that they see this spot. So they numb you up for it with lidocaine, but they didn't give me enough. So I felt it. And
No.
when you feel it, it's not nice, guys. It just isn't.
Ow.
There's no way around this. It stings, it burns, it hurts. You want the lidocaine to work.
The getification of the titties.
Yeah, I called them boob noodles and I looked at them in the little formalin vial.
My God.
Of course, because I'm so mature, I came up with a nickname for them. I got them taken out. They just they don't have to bandage you up much. They just put a Band-Aid on you and then they give you a little boob ice pack and they tell you to, keep icing it every 20 minutes for 20 minutes. And, that way the inflammation goes down from all of that loveliness. But to add salt into your already sore titty wound, they make you do a mammogram after you've done the biopsy because they mark it with a little marker.
Ow.
But the good news is the lidocaine is still working by then. So you literally feel nothing.
Wow. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Now that we've stabbed you, we're going to smash your boob.
I know.
Well, not only stabbing, taking a chunk of your flesh out.
Guys.
Shit.
Yeah, took chunks, guys. So then they squish you again and they have to use they luckily use a lighter weight because they're not looking for anything anymore. They're just making sure that this tiny little seed marker that they put in there is in place, and they put one of those in there just in case they have to go back in there for any reason in the future. So if it grows, they'll know, hey, we were watching this spot before and it looks bigger now. So then a couple days after that, I got a call and they said, hey, you've got a rare lesion inside of your breast called a radial scar. And actually, because mine was so large, it technically has another name, complex sclerosing lesion. And it was a, typical architecture, although there was something about it that was still kind of making them feel really weird. They're like, yeah, it said this, but with core needle biopsies, there's a fairly high likelihood that we've missed a malignancy in there. because it's only a tiny needle and the size of the lesion was over 4 centimeters. So if you have that much space that you're dealing with and you're dealing with this tiny little core biopsy needle, you're going to be missing a lot of area. And unfortunately, the presentation of this on mammography looks identical to invasive carcinoma. So they can't look at it and say, well, this is obviously a radial scar. That's not what happens. They're like, hey, this looks like cancer.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but there was still like a spot in there that they said worried them even more because it looked even stranger than the rest. And I was like, oh, well, that's nice to hear, guys. So then they wanted to do an excisional biopsy, which is also called a lumpectomy, where they take it out. They just they open you up, they take all of the lesion out of your breast, and then they close you back up. And
then they biopsied it, and it was your twin.
Then, yes. Then they found out that I had a twin, and I absorbed it, and it was just in my boob the whole time. Amazing.
Wow.
By the way, if you guys know much about biology and how women actually form, you would know that that's impossible. Yeah. So anyway, back to the real science. But that was excellent garbage science.
It
Annette. I'm
was.
impressed.
Thank you. I'm evolving.
Yes.
So you got the lumpectomy?
I did. I had a surgery over the summer. It does take a little while to heal. I have a feeling it's more painful for other people because I'm really good at ignoring pain and I don't have typical pain responses. So like I can sustain a pretty interesting kind of injury, and depending on where the location is, it might not hurt at all and I might not feel it. And that's something that was passed down to me from my dad, who also has a very similar way that he experiences pain in a random sporadic ways. So instead of feeling like, oh my God, it's so sore and it's throbbing or whatever, most of the time I felt nothing until all of a sudden I would feel a stabbing, shooting pain. And that would cut through any kind of medication I was on. I'd just be like, oh my God, I've been stabbed. Like,
ow.
It's just random. And then it would go away as quickly as it came on. And I'd be like, wow, that was such a strange episode. Or like, and it would just happen, randomly over time. Sometimes it still happens, where I'll have a random stabbing pain, even though I'm, mostly healed up. I think there's probably tissue inside that's still fully healing. But it's been more than a month now. And, so it's pretty healed. It's fairly healed, but there's still some stuff going on there. Like I can tell that there's just a little bit more swelling in there that's going to go away at some point. The tissue kind of she did a really good job with it. And, it's really minimal scarring. It looks like, for now. And, there's just a few differences in the appearance of everything. And I'm fine with all of that because, I'd rather have that stupid lump out of there.
Yeah. Man, why do our boobs have to betray us like this? What the fuck?
I don't know.
Right?
I know. I did
understand.
what they tell you is the right thing to do and breastfed my tiny little crotch muffins that I plagued the earth with. And, this is what they do. They turn around and stab me right in the back.
No, they stab you in the titty.
In the titty. And then they squished it. And, but after a few days after the surgery, they gave me a call and said, so the biopsy results from this, and at this point they test the entire lesion, not just, tiny little boob noodles. They're testing the whole thing.
Yeah.
So they were like, okay, so, the results are a little different than what we expected. We saw that there was a radial scar there, which is what we knew before. And there were papillomas, which we knew about before, which were they're strange growths inside your milk ducts. They already knew about that from the first biopsy, but they found something else. they found something called lobular carcinoma in situ, or LCIS. And that means that I had little tiny cancer cells that were inside of the milk glands, but that they had not spread outward. So it's not invasive carcinoma. They don't consider it cancer. They consider it like a precancer, if you will. And it comes with a fairly high risk of developing breast cancer in either breast over the duration of your lifetime. So I got told that I now have a 57% chance of developing breast cancer over my lifetime. And genetic screening was highly advisable, and I'm still waiting for the results of that. And
oh yeah,
they want to put me on chemo prevention medication, and I will have to be in touch with an oncology office for the rest of my life. Probably, like, they're gonna oversee the care and order the necessary tests. I'll have to have annual mammograms and annual MRIs on my breast tissue. The first MRI is in about 4.5 months.
Dude,
Right, but
I'm so glad they caught this early, though.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. This is why mammograms, don't miss your mammograms, ladies. Do your mammogram. I'm in sin because I haven't done mine yet. I got the notice that I need to schedule it and like a year ago, and I haven't done it yet. But like, Jen has inspired me. Like, I gotta go get my titty pictures.
Yeah, get your titty pictures.
Definitely get them. And, whatever is in there, just face it if it ever comes along. But, sometimes life can surprise you. And this did surprise the hell out of me, because despite being overweight and having polycystic ovarian syndrome and having ADHD, I have never been considered unhealthy by doctors. I have continued to exercise, and even though I'm overweight, I am still healthy. None of my labs have ever come back abnormal for anything. So, as far as we know, there is no breast cancer in my family or any other cancer except colon cancer. That's the only one that we've been able to track, and that we're not sure if that's a familial genetic thing or if that was random. So to hear that I have such a high chance of developing breast cancer over my lifetime, it basically just took all of the air out of my lungs. I was just like, oh my God, are you kidding me? Like 57%, that's almost 60%. That's like very close to if not when, or when not if, like, because most people say if I ever get it or if this happens, but with me it's almost to the territory of when. So it's, you almost feel like you're waiting for that moment when something worse is going to happen. And every single time I had an appointment, and I had so many medical appointments this summer, I just expected to hear something new and worse, and it makes you kind of paranoid and it makes you feel panicky. So my anxiety went through the roof. My depression also kicked up. I felt kind of hopeless for a minute. Even though I didn't have like cancer proper, I still had cancer light. And by the time I went in to see a medical oncologist, the person that I was speaking to said, this was probably in there since you were in your like 30s, maybe even your 20s, because of how large it was. And yeah.
Could you feel it? Could you feel the lump?
Oh. No, because some breast lumps you can't feel, especially if you have dense breast tissue like I do. So if I had breast tissue that was not dense, I would probably have been able to feel it. And in fact, once I knew where it was, I had a period, and my breasts kind of, how they kind of like swell up just a little tiny bit, and like they kind of ache a little bit. I could feel where it was after I already knew where it was. But because dense breast tissue can feel kind of lumpy for completely normal reasons, That's all it felt like, was just a teeny tiny, not even like a pronounced bump. Like, I really had to sit there and go, oh yeah, maybe that is what that is. It still wasn't too apparent. So, so this stuff can kind of take you by surprise. And, if you are up for a mammogram, definitely don't delay because, you could regret that later. Because they said that if I had left this until I was 50, chances are it would have developed into a lobular carcinoma by that point, an invasive one. And then I would have been dealing with actual breast cancer, possibly a double mastectomy, which is still on the table, by the way. That's another thing. Part of this lovely shitstorm summer is they're not sure yet whether they're going to suggest a double mastectomy and full hysterectomy for me.
Well, I would assume
and
that would come with your genetic testing, right?
Yes. Yeah. We have to know the results of the genetic test. Given the fact that the chance was as high as it was, the medical oncologist said, we're going to just not start treatment until we know the results of the test, because there's a chance that we might just have to take everything anyway. And then, you wouldn't have to take this medication that has some potentially toxic side effects. So, he was all for waiting and, and seeing what happened with that genetic test, since it takes, maybe like a month to get back.
Right.
So still waiting, and we'll see what happens there. But that has been my summer.
Yeah, hopefully you don't have to, hopefully those genetic tests come back and it's, your risk goes down, but.
Oh, well, it won't go down. My risk won't go down. It can only go up from here.
Either way, you'll have more information, to know what to do. Yeah.
So that's, I'm hoping it doesn't go up, because if it goes up, then we're dealing with when, not if. And then that's where they say you need a double mastectomy because you're not going to escape this.
It's so hard when I'm realizing you guys are both in situations where you're just kind of waiting, you're waiting for your dad's trial. You're waiting for your test result. It's so hard when you're in that spot where all you can do is just hurry up and wait, and you feel like you can't control it no matter what you do. Well, that's so hard to deal with.
You feel guilty just living your daily life, at least in my situation. Like, you feel guilty living your daily life. You feel guilty going out and doing things because, he's stuck and there's no answers for him. And so it's like, you have to really balance, like, I can't control his situation, but that shouldn't.
He wouldn't want you to not live your life too,
Right.
I mean, yeah. But it's almost like survivor's guilt, I guess.
Yeah, I was just thinking that it's almost like survivor's guilt. And if we know anything about ADHD brains, it's that waiting for answers and waiting for the next step is not something we're good at. So, in the midst of the turmoil that we've all experienced this summer, a couple of us to a little bit more interesting degree, it's gotten, just the waiting feels overwhelming, but also all the learning that you have to do about a new situation feels overwhelming, because you have to learn fast. In both me and Annette's situation, you got to learn lightning fast. And hey, we have learning disabilities. Look at that. So we're, it's one of those moments in life where you're like, you don't assume that ADHD can affect your legal status or a family member's legal status or your medical health, but it sure can. And there is a lot about the conflict between ADHD and cancer care that I'd like to touch on in a different podcast. Obviously this one's going on quite long as it is, but there's more to talk about. And I know that Annette's going to have more to talk about how ADHD has affected the process with not even just her legal issues, but her family members' legal issues. So, there's definitely like we kind of took a break because all of this stuff was combining and it kind of all hit us at one time. And we were like, okay, we need to take a break from the podcast for our own sanity because we have a lot to learn and adjust to in a very short period of time. And that's also why we didn't update hardly anything when we left. We're like, okay, cool, we're dropping it. Like, just for a minute.
Impulsive decision as per usual. Yeah, that's how we roll.
Sorry about not communicating well, but we
it's an ADHD podcast, what are we gonna do?
Clearly. And we're not masking here, so
no, we don't do that anymore.
Yeah. So
just like have I don't know, just like have grace for us because like, when we're in crisis, we were in crisis, and unfortunately it's like just going through what we went through was exhausting, was mentally exhausting for me. I know it was mentally exhausting for losing your job is hard, and the insecurity,
that's exhausting too.
The insecurity of not knowing what's going to happen next, that's stress. It's something you will constantly think about, and it's exhausting. All of this is just, it's mentally exhausting, but that's not an excuse. We're not making an excuse. Just we're just asking for grace.
We're asking for forgiveness, everyone, and just a little bit of understanding. And there are times when, later on, if I have to have a series of very large surgeries, there might be more times when either I'm missing or we're all missing, or, like if Annette's her father's trial is longer than expected, or if it ends up clashing, like we might have weeks where we don't create a podcast during those times. And sometimes it might just be we're missing one. Sometimes we might miss 2 or 3 weeks in a row. It just like right now, there are a few things that we just don't know what's going to happen. And,
I mean, this is our hobby. We are doing this for fun. We're not,
It's for our mental health. Let's come on.
Exactly. Just like with any hobby, you have to let that hobby work for you. If it takes over your life, then it's not fun. It's not relaxing.
Then we'd have to monetize it.
Yeah.
And we're gonna talk about some fun stuff coming up. We're gonna, our podcast is gonna get sometimes a little more serious and sometimes a lot more light than it has been. So we're we're gonna have fun with this, and we're looking forward to you guys joining us on the journey.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah. So thank you for being here again. And thank you for riding out that uncomfortable wave of silence that we threw your way. And hopefully we won't have too many breaks in the future, because we really do love producing all this content for everybody. And it makes us feel good that we feel like we're helping other people. So anyway, if you've listened this far, just thank you again.
You rock.
Yeah. We love you all. And Basiltov.
You do.
Basiltov.